Because honestly, for me, like, I know that this movie plays well to us, the hardcores, the geeks, the
Right.
fanboys, the ones who are like, we've been dying to have Batman say, I am vengeance. We're the ones who geek out for all this sort of stuff. But a part of me wonders if the normies, if the casuals are as excited as we are, because I have my own like little barometer. Sometimes I speak to my wife about these things because she watches superhero movies and she has somewhat of a good amount of caring for all this stuff. But when it comes to the Batman, when I've shown her trailers for it, she's left a little. She's left a little like this looks like the Christopher Nolan ones, but even darker. And she's kind of like, I'm kind of over Batman. And it makes me wonder, like, and this is someone who she likes going to go see these kinds of movies. And I've shown her all three trailers for this, thinking this is going to be the one that sells her. And she's like, meh. So a part of me wonders, and I've spoken to some other people who aren't like hardcore nerds, and they're like, yeah, there's another Batman movie. I don't know. I just wonder if there's going to be a surprise in the box office in that this movie at being like 3 hours long, very sort of dark in its appeal and in its tone and all the way it's being promoted. And the fact that it's another Batman, we just had Ben Affleck, and then for some people, it still feels like Bale was just recently Batman. You're like, here we go again. There might be some burnout. There might be some like just I don't know. I have a feeling, well, not a feeling. I just have a worry that the casual audience is not going to be as into this as the rest of us are.
Well, some of these casual people that you've spoken to, like your wife, like your friends,
Yeah.
how are they generally when, I don't like to make this a DC versus Marvel thing, but
Yeah.
it's the most apt comparison. It just is. How are they generally reacting to like Marvel trailers that are coming out, being more casual? Are they usually a little more on the positive side with that? Because
See
it is an interesting thing. Like, is it just that the Marvel
the
movies are
perception.
just the perception, are Marvel movies just more enticing to casual audience members than DC? Like, do you
Yeah.
think there's anything to that? Is it just the way the movies are made? Is it just the characters in
Well,
general? What is
honestly,
it?
see, the Batman is is in a unique position actually. Now that I think of it, because remember the big thing about the DCEU's negative perception through like 2013 through like 17 was that it was so grim dark. A lot of people balked at the end. How Man of Steel went. There was a big backlash and a divisive reaction to Batman versus Superman. There was a big negative backlash about Suicide Squad. So there was this, and there was even jokes. It would get referenced in Lego Batman movies and Teen Titans Go. Like it became like a thing you just acknowledge. In
Right.
Deadpool 2, there was a joke about DC being grimdark essentially.
Hmm.
So DC suddenly worked to like we need to counteract that and put forth a face of like optimism and heroism and all that. Yeah, they started kind of rebranding, trying to change the perception that DC is this dark, grim, dark thing. And now you got Matt Reeves coming out with the Batman by way of Seven. So it's like it's a weird fit when when we were apparently trying to get away from that, and there was a feeling that the audience was tired of that. But here's the darkest Batman movie that you've ever seen.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, will that backfire or I just I have
Yeah.
questions.
It's funny just because I feel like also people always say they're sick of the Marvel movies, they're sick of the
Yeah.
formula, they're sick of the how jokey they are, they're
Yeah.
sick of how they undercut any drama or attention with jokes all the time. Like that's an anecdote that you see all the time on the internet. The greatest cesspool on earth. So it's just it's very curious like how that response is because like you said, we've seen a lot of Batmans. We just had Christian Bale. We just had Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
But really, with the stretch of Marvel movies we have too. I mean, we've had how many multiple Iron Man movies and movies that he appeared in
Yeah.
outside of that. So, and that's in a shorter time span. And there's probably been as many appearances as Iron Man as there have been total Batman movies stretching all the way back to Keaton. If you really
Yeah.
think about it, and
Yeah.
we saw that in a very condensed period. And now, with Marvel moving forward forward, it seems like it is going to be just very mixed match, multiple characters appearing in multiple different films and crossing over. So
Yeah.
it's really like the same thing we were just saying about Batman and DC really is happening over there, but why are they so successful almost every time? Aside from like
Yeah.
the couple of stinkers, the duds in there. But I mean, hey,
But that's
again,
what
it's not a DC
happens.
versus Marvel thing, but
Yeah.
there has to be that has to be said. It has to be talked about.
Yeah, but well, there's something to be said about what your brand means to the outsiders.
Yeah.
And Marvel over the years has been able to build up their brand as something that's highly watchable and entertaining. And you may not always, it's not going to change your life, but it's a good time at the movies. And then the more you go to them and the more you see, oh, and this is connected to that, and this is leading to that, I feel like the Marvel brand over the years, like the Marvel brand puts people in the seats.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't matter who the hero is because they know, all right, I want to see the next chapter in this
Right.
Marvel saga. You know what I mean? DC, unfortunately, can't just say this is DC and everyone flocks over. And it's
Right.
because of how hit or miss things have been. Marvel, like, yeah, they've had a couple of complete turds by my standards,
Yeah.
but that's out of like 24 movies. By and large, things have been at least pretty good. You know what
So
I
it seems
mean?
the critical reception is really like the biggest factor here.
Yeah.
Just much more positive critical reception on the Marvel side than we have had on the DC side. So that seems to be making everyone. Is that what just is making everyone's minds up? I don't know.
Yeah, but also I think it's the way they've cracked these stories, the way that they've tried to appeal to like real mass audiences, whereas some of the DC stuff in the last 8 years seem to be catering towards a more grown up audience and all that. Marvel was going for families. It's kind of like Nintendo versus what Xbox was doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Marvel's been targeting the broad spectrum. So this spectrum where you have kids all the way up to their grandparents can go see Captain Marvel together. But the
Right.
same couldn't have been said about BVS or Suicide Squad or I mean, so it's like I think it has to do with what the brands have become over the years, and for better or worse, the DC brand on its own, I don't think puts asses in seats. And it's because Marvel has built up just this steady, notching all these little wins in a row has given them this perception of, I don't know if it's going to be great, but it's a Marvel movie. I'll check it out. People
Right.
are they're into it.
It's going to connect to something that I like in the future.
Yeah.
Like, is it like, I wonder if like that factor too, like, obviously DC, we do have like a shared universe now, but it hasn't had, the amount of time or amount of films that Marvel has yet. And I wonder if, yeah, it is just that people just want to be in the know on everything now with Marvel. So like they will literally just watch anything just because they know it's going to connect or have an Easter egg to something else. And that
Yeah.
might just put butts in seats. I'll just see it. I've seen all the other ones. Whereas,
Yeah.
this like, I could miss this Batman film. I can catch it in HBO Max. Listen, I've talked to some people too. A lot of people, my friends, again, more casual, but they're gonna wait the 45 days and then watch it on HBO Max. They're
Oh,
not
see
going
what
to
I
the
mean?
theater.
Yeah. See,
So
that's the thing. I wonder
too.
if
So I
like,
wonder that the streaming's definitely listen. The streaming no doubt hurt Suicide Squad.
yeah.
I mean, 100%. That movie was great. It had great critical reception. 100%. It was just that everyone watched it on HBO Max. It was right there.
Yeah.
Listen. Same with The Matrix. You know what I mean? Not even on DC. But listen, people did not go see that in theaters. They watched it on HBO Max. I mean, that one was a little different because I think the critical reception was very, very mixed on it. So
Yeah.
but it's interesting, and yeah, I think Warner's kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit. Well, it's hard to say. Are they shooting themselves in the foot? Yeah, they don't get the flashy numbers at the box office to say, but I'm sure it's pulling in great views and numbers on the streaming service and getting subscriptions, and that's their real end game because I'm collecting money from you every month, not just the one time you go to the movies this year.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's relative to argue like
yeah. It's a good business model for like the stock investors and all that sort of stuff, the people who run HBO Max and Warner Media and all that sort of stuff. But it means that these box offices are going to be a little gimped pretty much moving forward. And again, and if we're going to compare, I think it's an unfair comparison, but Spider-Man No Way Home right now is still in theaters. It's still doing great. It opened to like $260 million worldwide. And you could argue that in the grand scheme of things, Spider-Man and Batman are right up there together in terms of public perception, in terms of fandom, in terms of, just, a lot of people know that bat symbol, just like a lot of people know that Spider-Man symbol. It's
Hmm.
an international thing. So I feel that there is a way to combine the two without it being crazy, or compare the two. And what I think is interesting is that, Spider-Man No Way Home had the benefit of the entire Marvel, cinematic universe leading to it, creating this environment where everyone wanted to see what happens next in this Spider-Man saga, right? With this Batman movie, since they're starting from scratch and things have been sort of checkered, I don't expect it to have like this insane embrace at the theaters the
Right.
way Spider-Man did. And I just think that says a lot for where the two brands respectively are right now,